Thank you to our junior singers, to Miss Beth and Caroline, and for your diligence and sacrifice in working with them. It's been a number of years ago. I remember reading a news story that just kind of stuck with me. And at first, because I didn't really believe it. There was, I think it was somewhere in England, there was a convenience store that was having trouble with teenagers loitering around there. And they, I don't know, just having fights and just nonsense going on. And the shop owners didn't like it, and they couldn't get the police to do much of anything about it. And there weren't necessarily laws that were being broken, but it was really hampering their business. And somehow they found out about this and decided to implement this, where they installed a speaker outside, and it played a frequency that people over the age of 20 really can't hear. And something is going on with the development of the ear. I think it has particularly to do with the loss of a hair follicle, actually, in the ear canal, that once you get around 20 years old, you lose that, and you lose the ability to hear that frequency. And so this gas station was playing that frequency, and so young people couldn't stand it, and so they went to go loiter somewhere else. And so they seemed to work for the gas station. Anyway, I read that, and I thought, I wonder if that's true. Long story short, there's apps that you can download for this, and I tried it with my kids, and I'm like, holy cow, this thing actually works. So that they don't come home very often, because we're like, no. No, but I just remembered that, and I thought about it this past week. And all right, so Frank's going to help me with this in just a moment. When you hear this noise, I want you to raise your hand. All right, so when you hear the noise, you'll see a 3, 2, 1. I want you to raise your hand. All right, if you don't hear it, don't raise your hand. If you have a question, don't raise your hand. If you want to give big offering, raise your hand. No, but if you hear it, raise your hand. All right, Frank? And isn't it crazy? You old fogies can't hear this. What's the matter with you? In fact, do it again, Frank, just so when you hear it, raise your hand. You ready? And like, I don't hear anything. I heard no change whatsoever. But what's crazy is that you're able, those that are younger, you're able to pick up, you're able to discern something that the rest of us are just completely missing. There is real sound being made, real sound that is being generated, and you just aren't able to pick it up. You're just not able to detect it. You're just not able to discern it. With that in mind, we started a series last week where we're working our way through the life of David. And he's this giant figure in the Old Testament, and there's so much that we come to know about him. And last week, we saw that God had chosen him to be Israel's next king, but he's not in place yet. And that's not going to happen, actually, for some time. And we're going to be coming to an encounter today that many of you are likely familiar with. And maybe most of you, nearly all of you are familiar with, and that's the story of David and Goliath, where David encounters this giant of a guy. And in this particular episode of David's life, one of the things that we see is this. David is discerning some stuff that nobody else seems to. They are seeing the same thing, they're witnessing the same challenges, they're witnessing the same circumstances, but it seems that everybody else seems to be blind to what's going on. David is discerning this, and it leads us to this question, though. Are there things that God wants me to discern that I could be missing? And more specifically, as a follower of God, what should I be sure to notice? That I want to make sure that I pay attention, that this is going on, and make sure that I don't miss this. We see the answer to that question in the 17th chapter of 1 Samuel. If you'd open your Bibles there, in fact, leave them open today. We're going to read a few verses, but we're going to drop in throughout this chapter as we get this whole story. But 1 Samuel chapter 17, starting with verse 3, we are told The Philistines were standing on one hill, and the Israelites were standing on another hill with a ravine between them. Then a champion named Goliath from Gath came out from the Philistine camp. He was 9 feet 9 inches tall and wore a bronze helmet and a bronze scale armor that weighed 125 pounds. There was bronze armor on his shins. A bronze javelin was slung between his shoulders. His spear shaft was like a weaver's beam, and the iron point of his spear weighed 15 pounds. In addition, a shield bearer was walking in front of him. He stood and shouted to the Israelite battle formations, "Why do you come out to line up in battle formation? Am I not a Philistine, and are you not the servants of Saul? Choose one of your men and have him come against me. If he wins in the fight against me and kills me, we will be your servants. But if I win against him and kill him, then you will be our servants." Then the Philistines said, "I defy the ranks of Israel today. Send me a man so we can fight each other." Now, we're going to get to the answer of our question for a little bit in just a moment, but we need to make sure that we understand the context as to what's going on. David is still a young guy. Almost certainly he's under the age of 20. It seems that is the age where it is appropriate to be, or you would, if there was military conflict going on in Israel, that 20 and above is when you would join the army. David has 7 older brothers, and maybe all of them, a number of them are actually mentioned in this particular chapter, but they, it seems, are out in position getting ready to engage the Philistines. In every country, at any point in history, there are friends that you have and there are foes that you have. And for the people of God, for the nation of Israel, a generational foe for them is the nation and the people of the Philistines. And what has happened is that you have the Philistine army lined up on one hill, and in response, the Israelites have come out and they're on another hill. In between, there is this plain, this ravine in between. But the Philistines have something that the Israelites don't. They've got this monster of a fellow whose name is Goliath. We're told that he's 9 feet 9 inches tall. Almost certainly, and the text doesn't tell us this, but you can say, hey, this is a guy that probably has a pituitary gland issue. And he is just freakishly large. I mean, 9 feet 9 inches tall. I mean, this is a massive, it's not an accident to refer to him as a giant, because among us, this is a giant of a fellow. And if you're big, everything that you have is big. All of your clothes are enormous. We're told that he has this bronze armor that's like, this layered like snake's scales or fish scales. And just the armor, his breastplate weighs 125 pounds. So I mean, it's like he's got a metal person on front of him. It's just a huge guy. He's got this massive, massive helmet that he wears. He's got bronze covering his shins. We're told that he's got a spear, and the tip of this spear is made of iron, and it weighs 15 pounds. That's 3 bags of sugar. Imagine a stick with 3 bags of sugar on it, and it's hard. And so everything about this guy is just enormous. It's gigantic. And he is coming out, leaving the Philistine lines and approaching the Israelite formations. And what he is doing was not unheard of at this point. And what he was inviting the Israelites to do was to engage in representative warfare. And in this case, the thought is, let's not have both armies fight each other, where we've got thousands of people fighting each other, where thousands of people could die. We'll put up one and you put up one, and it's winner take all. So if our guy wins, then you are subject to us. If your guy wins, then we are subject to you. And the guy that comes out is Goliath. And so he is saying, fee, fi, fo, fum, and he is taunting the Israelites to send out somebody. This has been going on for days. In fact, it's been going on for 40 days. David is not there because David apparently is too young to be in the army. He's still back at home and he's tending the sheep. But if you were in the army at this point, it wasn't like there was a quartermaster that you would have following along as the army marched that would ensure that there were provisions for you. If you were fighting as a soldier, your family was going to make sure that you got food. So they would send food periodically to the front line so that their family member would have enough to be able to get by and to have enough sustenance to be able to engage in battle. Jesse sends David, stop tending the sheep for a little bit. I need you to take some food to your brothers. And so David, that's why he shows up. And we're told in this passage that he shows up with grain, with cheese, and bread. So he's got this sack of food that he's coming to bring to his brothers. And as he is bringing this out to his brothers, we're told in verse 17 that his father told him to do this. He arrives and he gets there, and in verse 26, he has just heard Goliath show up again. It sounds like every day this guy shows up and he says, come on, boys, send somebody out here to fight. You bunch of pansies, come on, send somebody. I'll take any of you. Just send somebody. And this has been going on for in excess of 6 weeks. Week after week, day after day, he's taunting them. And when David hears this, I mean, he's just shown up with his bread, cheese, and grain. And he says in verse 26, what's going to be done for this man who kills the Philistine and removes the disgrace from Israel? He's saying, this joker is humiliating our nation. This joker is humiliating the very people of God. And then he says, who is this uncircumcised Philistine? Now, here he's referencing the guy's spiritual condition. He's saying this is a guy that is estranged from God. This is somebody that doesn't know God, has no relationship with him, and he says he is defying it doesn't say the army of Israel. He says he defies the army of the living God. So this is just going to happen? So nobody's doing anything? And his brothers, they harangue him. Like, what are you doing here? Shouldn't you be back tending the sheep? In fact, they allege him in verse 28 as being essentially just suitable to tend sheep, that he has an arrogant and an evil heart. I mean, so it's just brotherly love, right? So they are castigating their own brother. And David says, and he's a young guy, he's a teenager, but he says, I'll fight him. Word gets to Saul. Saul's the king. They say, this David guy says he'll fight him. Well, they bring David to Saul, and he says, I'll do it. And Saul looks at him, and he says in verse 33, you can't go fight this Philistine. You're just a youth. And he's been a warrior since he was young. In fact, when we're introduced to him back in verse 3, or back in verse 4, we're told that he's a champion. How did he get to be a champion? Because he's fought a lot of people and he's done so successfully. Saul says to David, you're just too young and you're too inexperienced. There's no way you can do this. In response, David says, listen, I have dealt as a shepherd with lions and bears. He didn't say tigers, because if he did, we would have said. So it's just lions and tigers. But he says, as he has encountered those, he says that I have slain them, I have killed them, and the God that delivered me from the hand of the lion and the bear will deliver me from the hand of this Philistine. And Saul is like, okay, fine. But at least get ready for the part. I'll tell you what, I'll give you my armor. So Saul, who was a big guy, gives David his armor. Would the king have good armor? Yes, the king would have the best armor. Would the king have a good shield? Yes. Would the king have a good sword? Yes, he would have the best. He offers this to David. David goes to put it on. He's like, holy cow, I can't even move in this stuff. This is so big. It's like, because Saul, we're told, was a big guy. David apparently is not. He's like, I can't do anything in this. So he takes this stuff off, and we're told that he gets 5 smooth stones, and he takes his staff. So he's got a stick, some rocks, and his sling. And he heads out to the plain as Goliath is standing out there. And so when Goliath sees him in verse 42, we're told the Philistine looked at David, he despised him and saw that he was just a youth. And he says, am I a dog that you should come against me with sticks? Ooh. I mean, really, is that what you think of me? In fact, he is really, really ratcheting up the insults and the contempt that he's demonstrating towards the nation of Israel, towards their God, towards David, towards all of them. And he's, what are you kidding me? Is this some kind of joke? And then we're told, and pay attention to this, it says that he cursed David by his gods. He knew that David, as an Israelite, as part of the people of God, were connected with the God of Israel. And by that God, Goliath is cursing them. And he says, come here, I'll give your flesh to the birds of the sky and the wild beasts. Come on. Enjoy your walk. It's going to be your last one. And David says, you come with me with a sword, spear, and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of armies, the God of the ranks of Israel. You have defied him. At this point, they begin to make a move towards each other. It's possible that he is beginning, even Goliath, to throw this spear. But David takes one of his stones that he's collected from the riverbed, and he puts it in his sling, and he is heading towards Goliath, and he winds that bad boy up, flings it, and the rock hits Goliath in the forehead. We're told that it sinks into his forehead, which is to say, it broke the skull. Goliath falls to the ground. David goes over, takes Goliath's own gigantic sword, and severs his head. What does this do to the Philistine armies? Their ranks are just, they can't believe, everybody is running for the hills. And the Israelite army begins to pounce, and they experience a victory like they've never experienced before. You've heard that story, many of you, a million times. You've drawn pictures of it and colored them back in a kid's Sunday school class. Many times when you hear David in your mind's ear, you hear the word Goliath. This is what I want you to notice, though. This passage answers our question. As a follower of God, what should I be sure to notice? Because of this fact, David is seeing everything that everyone else saw. David is hearing everything that everyone else heard. He is experiencing all of this, but does Saul do anything? No. Do any of his brothers do anything? No. Does any other Israelite do anything? No. What is motivating David to do something when everybody else doesn't? It's because he's noticing what it seems like everybody else doesn't. And from that, we should pay attention to it. So as a follower of God, what should I be sure to notice? Well, first of all, I need to make sure I discern this. Spiritual realities are always present. Spiritual realities are always present. David, again, is seeing exactly what Saul is seeing. He is seeing what his brothers are seeing. He is seeing the Philistine formations, and he is seeing this gigantic 9-foot, 9-inch tall monster coming out. He is seeing this. But as he sees this gigantic guy, he doesn't say, holy cow, what a huge freak of a man. He doesn't say, what an enormous threat, what an imposing figure. He doesn't say, holy cow, what are we going to do? What does he do? He refers to this guy as a disgrace to Israel. That Goliath is heaping contempt upon the people of God. He says he's an uncircumcised Philistine, so he's recognizing this is a guy who has no relationship with God and bears and shares utter contempt for God. He's outside a covenant relationship with the Lord and is connected to these pagan people, and yet he is defying, he is taunting, and he is haranguing not just any army, but David says he's threatening the armies of the living God. David is seeing, hearing, and experiencing everything that everyone else is. But what he sees is not a military problem. What he sees is not an image problem. What he sees is not a security problem. What he sees is that there are spiritual problems. There is a spiritual threat that is going on. Do you see that? David doesn't talk about how big this joker is. He views him as disconnected with God, humiliating the people of God, defying the armies of the living God. Everything that he is doing, he is viewing through the lens of God. He's not thinking about it militarily. He's not thinking about it pragmatically. He's not thinking about it with respect to armor and armament and statistics and strategy or any of that stuff. He's thinking about it from a spiritual perspective. Well, what does that have to do with me and you? How is it that people then, that David's contemporaries, that Saul missed it, that his brothers missed it, that everybody seemed to miss it? Because, again, even though the calendar has changed, people haven't changed, and this is something we are really, 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 really good at. And that is, as people, we are excellent at compartmentalizing. That I have and you have in your life all of these boxes. And so you have relationships that are compartmentalized. So you have work relationships, church relationships, family relationships, community relationships, social relationships. You've got real friends, Facebook friends, so you've got that. You've got your schedule. You've got sleep time, work time, play time, nap time. You've got church time. You've got God time, right? And God gets Sunday morning. But once Sunday morning is done, once we finish, well, you put the lid on that box because then it's lunchtime and nap time, right? And then it's playtime because tomorrow you've got school time and work time, right? Dealing with school friends and work friends and work stuff and family stuff and financial stuff. Oh, and then it shows up again Sunday. Oh, it's God time. Let's take that box off the shelf. Let's open the lid. Okay, now we can think about God. Okay, time's up. Let's put the lid back on the box. We operate compartmentalized lives. David isn't looking at a military box, a security box, a reputation box. He's looking at everything that everybody else is seeing, but he's seeing the spiritual realities that are present. Why? Because he's not compartmentalizing. I realize that some of you have a problem. Actually, well, we're all weird. We are. We've just got different stuff that we're weird about. Some of you are really weird when it comes to mealtime. And today, when you have lunch, if you are putting food on your plate or if you go to a restaurant, some of you are going to be really, really nitpicky about the fact that there is stuff touching. You know who you are. And we don't necessarily like to admit it, but there's probably more than a few here today that you would like to just carry with you a divided plate, right? So that at any given instance, you make sure that the meatloaf doesn't touch the mashed potatoes, touch the peas, doesn't touch the roll. And come dessert time, don't you put that stuff on where the potatoes, bring me a new plate, right? Some of you are like that. My dad was not like that at all. He was like just slopping all this mess together. And his response, well, it all winds up in the same place. And I'm like, yeah, but, I mean, I'm not an animal. And so I'm somewhere in the middle. And so I want stuff to have its place. It can touch stuff, but if there's a whole lot of juice coming out, I don't want that. Why? Why do I want to keep stuff separated? Because if the juice from the peas gets on my meatloaf, it influences my meatloaf. So that it tastes like meatloaf and peas or meatloaf and corn. I don't want meatloaf and corn. I don't want meat. I just want meatloaf. I don't want that juice. I don't want that liquid from the green beans corrupting. I don't want it messing with. And so I need to keep all of this separate so that it will not influence and affect the other stuff. In life, unfortunately, all too often as followers of Christ, how we operate is like that. So that God has his little divider. He's got that time on Sunday morning. We'll give him some Sunday school. We'll give him some worship service. But that's it. Keep him in that divider, and by keeping him in that divider, what impact does he have on family time, on work time, on personal relationships, work relationships, communication, on finances? Well, nothing, because he's over in that box. Let me ask you this. As a follower of God, how much of your life is God interested in? All of it. What part of your life does God want to influence? Every bit of it. He wants to affect your relationships. He wants to affect how you entertain yourself. He wants to affect how money is spent. He wants to affect how time is spent. He wants to affect how it is that you speak and how you relate to other people. He wants to permeate the sum total of your life. He wants you to realize that in any given moment, in every situation that you are experiencing, there are spiritual realities that are present and are at work. It's not just in the workplace scenario that it's Excel spreadsheets and it's machines that are needing to be serviced. There are relationships that are going on where there are competing worldviews that are being shared, and that how you are dealing with somebody and how somebody is dealing with you is reflective of what it is that they believe and know to be true, and what it is that they've accepted to be true or not to be true about God, about themselves, about everything else. Listen, as a follower of God, he wants me to make sure, he wants you to not miss this. Spiritual realities are present. When? All the time. When you're at work, when you're at home, when you're in the neighborhood, when you're at Walmart, every time you are up and about, when you are awake, you are encountering spiritual realities. But the people of God, minus David, missed it. That's why they saw Goliath. He's just this monster. He's a military threat. He is a security threat. He's an image problem. David didn't see that. He saw this is a guy that's defying God. He's humiliating God's people. He is separated from God. He saw the spiritual realities that were present. We need to make sure we don't miss them. But there's one more thing we need to do, and that's to see this. God is the giant of every story. God is the giant of every story. I would love, honestly, it's kind of strange. I've been pastoring since 2001. This is the first time I've ever preached this particular passage, and there's so much that we could unpack and so many lessons that can be learned. But I think there is something that is so interesting that David seems to see that everyone seems otherwise to miss. Saul sees Goliath. David's brothers, they see Goliath. Israel's line of armies see Goliath. The Philistines' military lines, they see Goliath. All eyes are on Goliath. He's the tallest guy out there. He's the guy with the big spear. He's the guy with the tons of armament on. He's the giant that everyone seems to be focused on. And David is focused on the giant too. Except he's focused on a different giant. You see him do this at the end of verse 26. He says, this guy is defying the armies of the living God. In verse 37, David says, the Lord rescued me from the paw of the lion and the paw of the bear. So in a struggle against these massive animals, God was at work and God delivered me. God is the one who rescued him. In verse 45, look what he says. You come against me with sword, spear, and javelin, but I come against you in the name of the Lord of armies, the God of the ranks of Israel, and you have defied him. David sees a giant in this story, but the giant he sees is not 9 feet, 9 inches tall. The giant that David sees and the one that he's paying attention to isn't wearing armor that weighs 125 pounds. The giant that David sees doesn't have a spear that's tipped with 15 pounds worth of iron. That's not the giant that he sees. The giant that he sees is the God who made heaven and earth. And he's deciding, instead of facing this tall guy, I'm going to stand with the giant. And in every circumstance that I face, whether it's against this tall guy, whether it's a lion, whether it's a bear, whatever it is that I'm facing, that the giant in the circumstance is God himself. So many times, and I keep pressing this point, and I hope that it gets deep in your heart. The Bible in Old Testament and New Testament keeps talking about the glory of God and celebrating and revealing and God demonstrating his glory. And time and again, I keep telling you that my definition of this, that the glory of God is that which communicates that God is greater than anyone and anything. And so how God created the world demonstrates his glory. How God brought redemption to the world demonstrates his glory. How God is going to deal out judgment and justice demonstrates his glory. How God leads his people. Everything that God does demonstrates that he is greater than anyone and everything. And as David looks at this circumstance, he's seeing exactly what the people of Israel are seeing. He's seeing exactly what Saul is seeing. He's seeing exactly what his brothers are seeing. But they are seeing Goliath, and what is David seeing? He's seeing the greatness of God. That even in this circumstance, as big as this obstacle is, God's greater. He's greater than a giant of a guy. He's greater than a giant of an animal. He's greater than the giant of a military foe. In any and every circumstance, whatever I experience and whatever I encounter, the giant of the story is not the person that I see, it's the one that I purport and profess to follow. But how in the world can we miss it? How did they miss it? Well, let me answer it this way. Back in 1999, there were two psychologists that did a fairly famous experiment. Daniel Simmons and Christopher Chabris were their names. And in this particular experiment, and Frank's going to help me in just a second, what they did was they had people watch a video. And in this video, individuals were passing a basketball one to the other. And the people watching this were told is this: count how many times the basketball is passed by individuals wearing white shirts. Count how many times the basketball is passed by individuals wearing white shirts. All right, Frank, show me the picture. All right, so in the video, you see that they are passing them. As they are doing this, a woman dressed in a gorilla suit comes out. You see her coming out. She's in the middle. She beats on her chest and is in the scene for 9 seconds. So 9 whole seconds, and it's a short video. She comes out, she stands in the very middle and walks off. In the experiment, how many people saw the gorilla? 0. 0. Why? Because they were looking for people with white shirts passing a basketball. How could you miss something so big? Because you were paying attention to something so insignificant. How in the world could we miss that God is the giant of every story? Because we will pay attention to that which is, by comparison, insanely insignificant. Pick your challenge. Pick the obstacle. Pick that which is keeping you up at night. Pick that which is so frightening that you have no idea about. Pick whatever it is. And that will lead you to operate like the people of God, unfortunately, back then, where for 6 weeks you're just cowering. We don't know what we're going to do. This is so big. David shows up with his bread, his cheese, and his grain. This guy is defying the armies of God. I will represent God before him because God is greater than this joker. In fact, God is greater than anyone and anything. David discerned it. David saw it. And God used David tremendously. Why? Because he didn't miss it. In your circumstance, what is it that you're missing? Is it that God just has this little bit of time on Sunday morning? When in truth, what he's wanting to do is to affect the sum total of your life, your relationships, your conversations, your use of money, your stewardship of your body. All of these things God's wanting to impact, but that hasn't happened. So many great victories haven't been experienced because you've left God over in that little small part of your life. And he's demonstrating to you, I want involved in the totality of your life. Or maybe it is that you would say, you know what, I've been like the people watching that video. I've been like the people of David's day. I've been focusing on that which is ultimately, by comparison, so small, as opposed to a God who is so great. So if you've missed it, welcome to the party. I have too. We all have, at various points. The question is, are you going to continue to do that? Will you bow your heads with me?